My process is, so say I have, I don't know, 3,000 submissions, and I need to narrow that down, probably first pass narrowing to maybe 400. So that's 2,600 people I need to eliminate. So the very first thing is the headshot.
This episode was originally recorded as an exclusive members episode, but since then, all episodes have been made available to you for free. If you'd like to support the production of this podcast, you can simply go to faffpodcast.com/support and leave a tip.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Your hosts, Jeffrey and Jaclyn Witt.
Welcome to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. I'm Jaclyn, and Geoff and I are speaking with Beverly Holloway today. And I am so excited to learn about this because I never really got to talk to somebody in casting before. So this is all very interesting to me. I would actually like to know, what are some things that you would want other people that are involved in the project to know? Like, for example, everything gets organized, with the story, the development, and all of that. And then, it goes to casting, and then casting does its thing, and then it moves into production. And then there's all that team on that side of things. So I'm curious, is there anything or any advice, like, please do this, anything that you would extend to other people that are working in this process alongside you?
Yeah, it is very much a dance that we do, leading into production. Everything is gearing up and everyone is working towards that goal of day one of production. And I think all of us in our individual departments can get a little tunnel vision about what we have to accomplish. Myself included, I get this way as well. We're so focused on what we need to do and where we are in the process that we sometimes can forget how interconnected we are with other departments. For example, casting obviously is very connected with wardrobe. That's probably the biggest stressor. I'm brought onto a project and within days, wardrobe's like, when we have sizes, when can we get the names of the acts? It's like, I just started. I'll get them to you as fast as I can. But, the sooner that they can have things, the better. But there are times where there are roles that we're just struggling to get cast and to finish and to find that person. So I think sometimes there can be tension between wardrobe and casting simply because we're both trying very intently to get our jobs done and get our jobs done well. And if I'm not giving wardrobe what they need, they cannot do their job. And that's frustrating on their side. I know the pressure and feel the pressure of that and understand that, but I also can't just snap my fingers and make it happen. Like, it is a process.
Right.
We just have to get through it. So it's kind of an understanding that I hear you. I understand you need an actor to fill that spot and to put clothes on. And really just having some patience and understanding between those departments when times are really stressful, which is typically when you're coming down to those last few weeks. Props is the same thing. Oftentimes they need to put photos and things, get those made in on a set, right? That is photos of actors that we're casting. And so they can't do that until the actors are cast. So those are probably the two biggest departments that they can't finish their job until they have cast. And I'd say that's the biggest interaction point is with those two departments, wardrobe being first and foremost for sure. So it's a little bit of understanding where the other is coming from and knowing that we're all working as hard as we can to get it done. And I have no desire to make you miserable or to put off your job at all. In fact, I'm equally motivated to be able to fill those roles as they would like them filled. So we're working towards the same goal. So that's probably the biggest thing. When it gets tense, and it certainly does, there's a lot at stake working towards day one. It's just a matter of trusting that we're all working together. We all want it to come together and be great. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing.
I really appreciate being able to recognize, like, the filmmaking definitely is a collaborative effort, right? Huge
Yes.
team. And so
Yes.
within that, yeah, we definitely need to remember that while we each have our specific role that we play, we still have to play nice and recognize that everybody has their role too. And everybody's just trying to do their role and to make the project the best that it can be. And so, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying and having grace for each other while we're working together on this. And in the end, it's about building something together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really appreciate that.
And especially if it's a film, since your podcast focuses on faith, if the film is known and is clearly a faith-based film, and those who are coming to work on it, actors, crew, know that about it, we need to understand they are watching us and how we are with each other and how we treat each other. Are we going to be like the hypocrites they may have in their mind? Their word, not mine. But the people who work on our films are not necessarily people who currently share our faith. And so people can come into those settings with all kinds of agendas.
Yeah.
It's just a gig for them. It's just a paycheck. And on the downside, we can prove them right, meaning we can act no different than the rest of the world as far as how we treat each other and our process for filmmaking. Or we can show them a completely different way of being on set where we are kind to each other, where we are extending grace, where we are speaking encouragement to each other. And honestly, that blows a lot of people away when they just aren't exposed to it. They just don't experience that. And that's why I'm a proponent of not having our film sets be quite as much of a bubble of just people who share our exact values and our exact faith, but because I think it can be one of the most amazing ways to show them the walk, not just the talk, and to live it out for them. And I'm sure every filmmaker, you guys may even yourself have stories of those people who their lives have been changed because they worked on an Irwin Brothers set or worked with the Kendricks, and they just experienced something different. So in my opinion, it is a mission field like any other mission field. And understanding that hopefully changes the way we are with each other, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
We've also had guests who have a Christian worldview, strong faith, who have not really done much work in the faith-based industry, but have been working in Hollywood. And it's a mission field for them too, and they feel that way.
Yep, exactly. And I firmly believe that God has gifted certain people to work in the mainstream Hollywood environment. We need their presence. We need their spirits. We need their testimony in the places that don't have as much exposure to that. And I think God gifts certain people the ability to go there and to be strong in their faith in an environment that might tear others down or cause others to weaken their faith.
Right.
There's several people that come to mind that are absolutely equipped. God has strengthened them and given them such a resolve about who they are and their priorities and their values that they can work in that environment and yet still maintain boundaries and a way of working that is God honoring, I think we need to be praying for anybody who's working in this field because it can change culture, right? Films,
absolutely,
storytelling is really powerful in culture. So prayers for those working in that field are always needed and appreciated. But especially those who are working in the heart of mainstream Hollywood, because they are oftentimes not amongst friends. Right. And even now we're in a political environment, right? Currently, because it's an election year.
It could be tough.
Even more volatile. Yeah. So I mentioned that to just say, as you think of it and it comes on your heart, say a quick prayer for those who are in the middle of it in this environment. So
yeah, that's a great idea. So I have a question. Do you still do acting? You said that was kind of where you started. Do you still act?
That's a very fun question. So last year, I got the opportunity to do a role in a Christmas film, The Perfect Christmas, with a team down in, I think we were in Maryland, Anthony Hackett and his filmmaking team. It was very fun. I got to work opposite some of the actors who have become friends. And so that was the first time in almost 30 years I have been on screen. So that very first project I mentioned that I did as an intern, I was also a nurse. It was a ministry film. And ironically, that film, I cast David White and Kevin Downs to play best friends, not knowing they actually were friends.
Oh,
Yeah, so it was their start. It was my start. And it was a story. There was a hospital scene. And so I don't remember what my character's real name was, but I always just called her Nurse Cratchit. So I always say that
Okay.
I played Nurse Cratchit. I think it's something I may do more of as I diversify what I'm doing. But right now I'm still pretty focused on casting. So we'll see.
I have a question about actors. To what degree, as a casting director, are you working with talent agents, which I'm assuming probably mostly, but to what
Mhm.
degree are you working directly with some actors who may or may not yet have a talent agent?
Yeah, that's a good question. So primarily on a project, the first and foremost outreach is to agents and managers. And we use platforms, online platforms that allow us to get our breakdowns out to all of those people. So every project typically will go out to agents and managers. Then there's a secondary option to release that breakdown directly to actors. And I personally try to do that as often as I can. Not all casting directors do, mostly because it increases the numbers. I was just at a conference in Tennessee, the Focus conference, and we had a casting director. We were on a panel, 4 of us, and Deb George, she's great. She's wonderful. She's working with David White now. She's doing network television. That's her background, television and film. And she said some roles they would get 15,000 submissions for one role. And
Oh,
that's
wow.
just,
Whoa.
yeah, that's just through the agents and managers. So they just don't have the capacity to then open it up and get another 15,000 submissions directly from actors. So the mindset behind that is you go to the agents and managers because they've basically pre-vetted for us the talent,
Yeah.
right? They've
Mhm.
said, I've seen them, I know their work, I stand behind them, and I believe in them enough to represent them.
And they can potentially fit this role.
Yes, exactly. They're making that presupposition
Yeah.
for us because they know their actor better than we do oftentimes. But I think through going to conferences and speaking, I'm understanding the plight of the unrepresented actor. And I recognize there is some really wonderful talent who just either are just starting out. Sometimes they did acting for a while and then went and raised a family and they're coming back into it. For whatever reason, they're not represented. So I try to, when I can, go to the options that are directly to the actors. But we just can't always.
Yeah.
The numbers increase. I say you have to kiss a lot more frogs to find the prince or princess in there. And sometimes we just don't have the time. But when
Yeah.
we can, I do like to because I understand there is a lot of really, really great talent that just for whatever reason just don't have an agent at the moment.
Right. So continuing on with that, when it comes to eliminating submissions, are there certain things where it's like, okay, right off the top, we're going to eliminate this kind of group? Because that's a lot to sift through.
Right.
So like, for example, if there's a submission from somebody that does not have a demo reel, does that play into whether you take the time to look at them or not?
Well, I'll speak to my process. And again,
Mhm.
it can be very individualized according
Sure.
to the casting director. My process is, so say I have, 3,000 submissions, and I need to narrow that down, probably first pass narrowing to maybe 400. So that's 2,600 people I need to eliminate.
Yeah. Starting November 7, you can learn the foundations of story development for screenplays with me, Jaclyn Witt, in my 6-week mentorship class called Screenwriting Foundations. If you've been writing for a while but struggling to win awards or sell your work, or if you're new to screenwriting, Screenwriting Foundations will guide you through the process of writing a satisfying story that works for film. Plus, every student also receives a follow-up one-to-one mentorship call. Class size is limited to 8 students, so don't waste time. Learn more about my Screenwriting Foundations class at faffassociation.com. That's FAFF association.com. Also, the link is in the show notes.
So the very first thing is the headshot. That's why I always talk about a great headshot and what is important. It's the eyes. I've mentioned to actors, the shirt is not going to get you cast. So don't frame your shot because you think the shirt looks cool, or if you have long hair, you pull it back so we can see your full length of your hair. No, that's not what's going to get you cast. What's going to get you cast is the eyes, the life in the eyes that we see in the headshot. Is that headshot intriguing and interesting to us? And typically that happens all because of the face. What you're wearing and things can add to the tone of the picture, but I don't need to see a full shirt. So sometimes they're just cropped incorrectly to not be as strong. So the headshot right away. Now, what actors don't know is when I do a breakdown and say the director is open to any ethnicity, any hair color, any height. So basically it's anybody, right, for this actor. But then the more he or she thinks about it, they're thinking, man, I really pictured Latin there. I'd really love it if we could find someone with, Latin or Hispanic background. Well, the actors don't know that. And all kinds of people submitted. But now I have new information as I'm going through the submissions that will cause me maybe not to exclude everybody, but to heavily favor Hispanic or Latin submissions.
Yeah.
It's an ever-moving process. And so those are the parts that actors don't realize. And they'll submit, and they'll think, gosh, I'm not getting called in. Well, there's a whole set of things that you have no knowledge of that are completely out of your control, that you kind of just have to go with it. You have to submit and keep submitting and increase your odds by keep submitting, and that happens a lot with the director, especially as we start reading people. So say the first pass of people that we ask to audition is very broad. We cover all ethnicities, all body types, all of that. And then when they see it and they start hearing the dialogue, then they start to formulate a better picture of what's resonating most strongly with them. And they then give us new information of, like I said, favoring Hispanic or Latin. Or the other thing that happens a lot is in the beginning, if nobody's cast, then everything's a blank slate, right? So say you have a female lead and the best friend, and you cast the female lead and she's a blonde. Well, all of a sudden, a blonde best friend doesn't really work as well. You don't want to confuse the audience. Like if they're standing, which one is it and who are they? And so those are nuances we have to take into consideration now, is how do they complement those who are already cast? And so as we cast more people, it informs the selections that we make. And if we're seeking to be a diverse cast, then that also changes. So as we say, oh, okay, we have African-American in this role, is there a wife or a family or, siblings that go along with that? Then that dictates. So it's always changing. So we're always changing our selection process as a result. But purely the headshot, most important thing at the beginning. And then I'll narrow down sometimes in that process. Like I can't realistically click on 3,000 demo reels. So that's why I say that first pass is very much just a visual overall vibe, look, generals to what I've been told from the director. Then I'm at 450 and say I need to get to 200, okay, which is still a lot. That's 250 people now I have to eliminate. So I tell actors, don't make it easy for us to eliminate you. That's where having a demo reel comes in. That's where having a resume that looks professional. And again, if you don't have a lot of credits, that's fine, but let us see that you've done theater. Let us see that you're active in studying the craft. Do what you can to present as strong foot forward as possible, because when it comes down to, I have 2 people and one has a demo reel and I can see them and one doesn't, then, I mean, logic tells you I'm going to err on the person that I
Yeah.
can see their demo reel. It's less of a risk, right?
Right.
Right.
So it's not to say we don't ever make exceptions or are so intrigued by someone's look or their resume that we don't think, let's just give them a shot. But it is highly competitive. So you want to keep that in mind. Just remember, don't give us an easy reason to eliminate you.
Mm-hmm.
Approximately how many people are you narrowing it down to by the time you're actually getting them to audition?
It depends by role. And I would say nowadays, because of self-tapes, we can see a lot more people. So I know there's some actors have a negative feeling about self-tapes. They would rather be in the room and have the live auditions, but self-tapes do allow us to see more people. So I would say for a lead role, average maybe 250, sometimes 300. But if we don't find the person, we keep looking till we find them, you know? But in times where everyone had to come into our office and they were all live in person, that's much different. You can only see so
Right.
many people in
Right.
a day.
Mhm.
And so we were far more limited by just our time frame as to how many people we could see. So I will take a lot more chances on actors who on paper don't look as strong because of the self-tape process, because I know it's not an appointment on my calendar that someone else could have filled. It's a tape that I can watch and probably know in the first less than a minute whether there's potential there. So I'll take the risk because worst case scenario, I'm only investing 30 to 45 seconds in that.
Mhm.
Now, that might be discouraging for actors to hear that, that they put the time in, do their whole tape, and may only get 30 to 45 seconds watched. But on the flip side, if they're good, we'll watch the whole thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
be good.
Yeah. And for many of them, they would never have gotten a chance to get it in front of you at all if it wasn't for the self-tape process.
Yeah. When you have 20 spots, 25 spots in your live day, in your office, every one of those you just need to make the most of, because that 300 people, I don't have all of those days
Right.
to see 300 people in person in my office. So it really does provide opportunity for sure.
So does it matter where the person lives? Like, is that another elimination factor?
Only if it's a local hire only role. And even that does change. Again, there are roles that we'll put out on a breakdown that in the beginning, the producers are open to it being traveled in if necessary. They're okay with that if that's where the best actor comes from. But as money gets spent, so, I'm given a pie at the beginning, and as pieces of that pie is dedicated to certain actors as we book them and cast them, then what's left over has to be divided between everything that's left open. And so oftentimes the travel budget, the accommodations budget is spent. It's covered. We've already used it up. And so roles that might have originally been open to actors from anywhere become local hire only.
Right.
And so we then go back through those submissions and we're specifically looking for those who are local hire. If it's a local hire role, then that is an elimination point if they are not able to be local hire for what we need, because it's just purely financial. There just isn't the money to travel them in anymore.
Well, this has been fantastic talking with you. I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a lot, and I'm so excited to share this with my actor friends, because I know that they're going to really appreciate, especially this last part of our conversation was so eye-opening.
Oh, good.
So important.
Good.
I would love to have you back on the show sometime.
I feel like we could go on and on.
I know, you're like a wealth of information.
That's 30 years. That's what 30 years will do for you.
Yeah. But Tuesday nights on Facebook.
Yep.
Do people go to your Facebook page? How do they find that?
Yeah, they can go to the Beverly Holloway Casting Facebook page. We go live there. And again, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, and we go for about 45 minutes or so. And then those videos do live on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel. I think it's also Beverly Holloway Casting. and they'll live there if people want to go back, or they also live on the Facebook page too. Oftentimes I hear actors go back and watch them if they missed it. So they should all be there if anyone's interested. We talk about all kinds of things, starting out acting, advice for young actors, all the way to those who have been in it for 30 years like me. So it's quite a range.
That is so helpful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and helping people in the industry. I feel like this is an industry that a lot of people look at like it's just a mystery getting into it, and so to have people like you that are sharing, like, here's what you need, okay, and here's what makes you attractive as somebody that would be hired, or here is something that would eliminate you. Like, this is just such great information. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's been my joy. And like you, I could talk about it however long you want to talk about it. So I'm passionate about this industry. I'm passionate about actors. And so it really is a joy to have this discussion and to talk with you guys. That's been very fun.
Oh, thank you.
It's been great to get to know you.
Yeah.
You as well.
Thanks again. God bless.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at faffpodcast.com/email. That's faffpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.